Hey everybody, this is Scott Soltis of the Springfield Bengals, and we're going to do a quick podcast this week on the current playoff picture in Road to Glory 2. So some stuff has been settled, other stuff hasn't, and there's no real good place I could find on the website to see who's clinched what and who's in and who's out and everything like that, so I thought I'd throw this together for everybody. So let's start with the NFC. The NFC has a good bit decided already. Specifically, 4 teams have clinched playoff spots. The Eagles have clinched the NFC East, so they're in, and 3 teams from the NFC West have all clinched spots. So we don't know who's going to win the NFC West just yet. The Cardinals are currently in the lead with tiebreakers, but we know that all 3 teams are definitely going to be in. The Lions are leading the NFC North, and the Saints are leading the NFC South, and there's really only 2 teams in the NFC that still have a chance. So the Packers have a shot at the Lions. They're 2 games back with 3 games remaining, so they need some things to break their way and some things to break badly for the Lions in order to get in. And the Saints are leading the NFC South with a big matchup against the Falcons coming up. But the Falcons are still only 2 games behind, so again, they're in a spot where they can make up that ground and end up winning the NFC South. So again, 4 teams have clinched spots. The Eagles have clinched their division, and no byes have been clinched yet or anything like that. So still a lot of work to do in the positioning, but not so much in terms of who's in, who's out. Really, there's only 2 teams outside of the current 6 that have a chance. So the games to watch for this week are really just a couple that have clinching scenarios attached to them. So if the Lions win this week and the Packers lose, then the Lions clinch the NFC North and the Packers are eliminated from playoff contention. The other clinching scenario for the NFC this week is that the Saints clinch the NFC South with a win this weekend. Nothing else can be decided. The NFC West is going to be probably down to the very last week with the 2 games. Who gets byes are also going to be down to the wire as well because it's really jumbled up at the top. So the only 2 things that can happen to clarify the playoff picture: again, if the Lions win and Packers lose, the Lions are in, the Packers are out. And if the Saints win, then the Saints are in, and all 6 spots will have been claimed, and it'll just be a matter of trying to figure out who is where. The AFC is a little more complicated. So only 2 teams have clinched playoff berths by virtue of winning their divisions. So my team, the Bengals, have won the AFC North, and the Bills have won the AFC East. So those 2 teams are in, no matter what. The Texans are in the lead in the AFC South, but as you can see, they only have a 1-game lead over the Titans, who currently own a wild card spot, so nothing has been decided there. The Raiders and Chiefs are actually tied in the AFC West, but according to tiebreakers, the Raiders are in currently and the Chiefs are out. But again, that can go a couple of different ways. The Chargers technically still have an outside shot at winning the division as well, but they need to win out and have the Raiders and Chiefs lose out. So it would take a little bit of work for that to be able to happen, but technically the Chargers still have a chance at the West and or a wild card berth. One of the more incredible things that I figured out as I was looking through this is that my team from the AFC North is in, and all 3 other teams have a chance still. The Ravens are in the best spot to claim a wild card berth of the teams that are not in because they have a winning record. The Steelers and Browns are sitting at 6 and 7 with losing records, but again, if they win out, then they could get to 9 and 7. They would need some other things to happen. They don't control their own destiny, and with one more loss, any of them are out. But as of right now, we still have 4 teams that are in the playoff hunt. So we have some more clinching scenarios for the AFC than we had for the NFC. So we'll start with my team. If I'm able to beat the Steelers this week and the Titans, Raiders, and Chiefs all lose, then I get a first round bye. So that's a bit of a stretch. That took me a decent bit of working to try to figure out, but technically it's a clinching scenario. some more straightforward ones. The Texans, if they win this week, they clinch the AFC South. So they clinch playoff berth, clinch the South with a win. And even if they lose, if the Ravens also lose, then they at least clinch a playoff berth. They wouldn't necessarily get the AFC South, but they will at least be in. The Texans, Chiefs, and Raiders can all clinch playoff berths with wins and a Ravens loss. So if the Titans win, the Chiefs win, and the Raiders win, and the Ravens lose, then every AFC spot has been claimed. And then this last one isn't so much a clinching scenario as an elimination scenario, where if the Browns, the Steelers, or the Chargers lose this week, then they're out. So a couple of other things to mention. 3 big games for this weekend. So what's on tap if you're really curious in how the playoffs are going to shake out. So the third biggest game is the Ravens versus Browns. Now, this is a big game because it has a lot of implications for other teams. Like I just mentioned, if the Browns win and the Ravens lose, then the Texans, Titans, Raiders, and Chiefs are all playing for playoff berths. So pretty big implications for this one game, not necessarily for either of the teams involved, but for their chances of making the playoffs. So the early adjusted line, and so what the adjusted line is I just looked at who you had on bye this week and plugged in the best available player based on projected points. I know the lineups are going to change. I didn't do a full best available roster or anything, but just to get a little sense of how these things are looking. The Ravens are favored, but they're only favored by 17.65 points. So that's really just one pretty decent performance from any type of player. If you want to go back and see how this matchup has played out in the past, the Ravens won in week 2 by 25 points and some change. So this is a big game. Again, not so much necessarily for the teams involved. I mean, if the Browns lose, they're definitely out. If the Ravens win, they're definitely still alive. But because it has spillover effects to so many other teams. The second biggest game of the weekend is Texans versus Titans. These are 2 teams that are currently in the playoffs, and so there's a lot of implications of this. If the Texans win, they clinch the AFC South. The Titans could end up matching their record, but when you look at the tiebreakers, which is divisional record, the Texans would win the tiebreakers, even if the Titans won out after this and the Texans lost out after this. So the Texans, if they beat the Titans, they win the AFC South. The Titans greatly strengthen their playoff position with a win, and if the Ravens lose, the Titans would clinch a playoff berth. So early adjusted line for this one is the Titans actually kind of big, 35.98, but again, that's just plugging in basic best available players for buys, so I'm sure this line is going to change throughout the week. Don't go placing bets on that because no one's going to honor it. If you go back to week 2, the Texans won. So the Texans won 338 to 310, about 28 points. So should be a good matchup. And the biggest matchup of the upcoming weekend is the Saints and Falcons. This is a huge matchup because if the Saints win, then they clinch the South and eliminate the Falcons. So the Falcons have to win this game if they want to have a chance. This is a head-to-head matchup between a leader and a bubble team that is for all the marbles. So this is projected to be the closest one of the 3 big games to watch. Saints are favored to win just by less than 15 points. So this should be a good matchup. And if we look back to week 2, it was a really good matchup then as well, with the margin of victory just being 8 points. So those are 3 games to watch. That's the current playoff picture. If I got anything wrong, apologies, but I'm pretty sure that this is how things stand and how things are playing out into the last week of single games, with the double game week coming up in 2 weeks. So hope you enjoyed this. Hope that helped to clarify some things for you, and good luck to everybody.